Welcome back, everybody, as we talk about our next on the lineup, which is the Ice Staff. My name is All Fun and Games. I stream every day on Twitch TV, and I also make fun little videos here on YouTube. Today, we're talking about the famous little Ice Staff that lots of people probably have accidentally picked up in the Constant. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's sometimes a Hound Trap that has the Ice Staff in the middle. You pick it up, and voila, winter begins. It normally doesn't happen inside of Don't Starve Together, but of course it does happen in Don't Starve Single Player. Anyways, what does Ice Staff do? Well, much like the Fire Staff, it, of course, does the reverse. Requires only a spear and a blue gem, which honestly is not that big of a deal. Now, the trick of the matter is, whenever you decide to hit something with it, it will, of course, begin to freeze it. Double hits will possibly freeze the actual mob in place, depending on how large it is. So let's go ahead and compare, shall we? If, for example, you have spawned in, let's just say, a beefalo, or not spawn in, but you are near a beefalo, and you decide that you want to freeze it. Well, we know the spider took 2. Let's see how many it takes to freeze a beefalo. 3. And then, of course, it depends on what you're going from there. And just remember that when these things are no longer frozen, they are going to attack you because you've triggered an attack on them. Let's go ahead and spawn in a Deerclops, shall we? Deerclops is now spawned in. Of course, the eye is there because of the Winter's Feast. And let's begin to attack it a bunch of times. And 4 attacks does a trick regarding the Deerclops. Now, remember that as soon as you go up to it and hit it with a normal attack, whether that be, it's going to automatically unfreeze the target. So just be careful if you decide to use it, that just because you froze it does not mean that it's going to keep it frozen during a course of time. So for me, in my position on the Ice Staff, it still is a pretty cool little thing to use. Of course, at, the cost of using it, you are obviously diminishing multiple different things, including every time you decide to go and use it over and over again, you're taking more and more losses on the actual Ice Staff and or Fire Staff. Now, at the cost of just being a blue gem and a spear, it's actually pretty cool to use and keep in your base. There's multiple other uses with the Ice Staff, and this is why I deem the Ice Staff probably one of the most fairest little things to use. And the reason for that is because if there's ever sometimes a base fire, you can easily put that out with your Ice Staff. So that means if your base is on fire or smoldering or whatever it might be, yes, you can extinguish multiple fires with your Ice Staff. Now, it is basically going to the position where once a fire does start, for example, let's just go ahead and show it real quick, shall we? And you decide to start a fire, or multiple fires for that matter, it will extinguish it with just one single hit, bink, and the fire obviously, will go out immediately. But that means that if there's a bunch of fire around or a ton of them, you might be using your Ice Staff quite quickly, but in the case of emergency, it's really good to keep around. So, in my opinion, the Ice Staff is probably one of the more better of the two between the Fire Staff and the Ice Staff. It's definitely useful in multiple scenarios. So I will deem the Ice Staff a great thing to have on hand, especially with some of the new things that have came out, some of the new bosses and stuff. It's really great to have to especially keep them at bay when you finally decide to fight past the Celestial Champion. Anyways, that's it for me. Go out there and make an Ice Staff because it's really worthwhile. And sometimes if you just find one in the wilderness, just keep it in your base as a backup Fling-O-Matic, because honestly, let's be honest, there's been times where your base begins to burn and you have no idea what to do. Anyways, thanks again for watching. I will see you in the next one.